Joining us in the studio, Dr. Jonathan Tripp, back from a long engagement practicing medicine.
That's right. Every day.
Every day.
Yep.
And he'll be with us until 9 o'clock this morning. Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Doctor, your email arrived. There you go.
Yeah.
We're sitting, we're cross-tabling here. He's got his laptop, and we're sending, since we're in the same studio, we're sending messages back and forth.
There's a lot of charades going on as well.
You're talking about weekend warriors today, and I'll never forget, when I was about 10 years old, we went on a picnic with some neighbors, and my dad and the neighbor's father and a couple of the other dads all got involved in playing touch football with us.
Yeah.
And we spent a couple of hours playing touch football. And then the next day, my dad and all of his adult friends were terribly sore.
Yeah.
The kids were fine because we ran around all the time. And I've had the same experience when I've gone bowling. I don't do it very often anymore. And if I bowl 3 or more games, I have some muscle issues in the back of my thighs the next day. This is what you're referring to as weekend warriors. Sometimes we tend to overdo it just a little bit.
You bet. In fact, we're usually pretty motivated to do something that we either used to do or haven't done and think, oh, that'll be fun. And what I'm encouraging is for people to do it because, the physics law about bodies that are in motion tend to stay in motion is better for us in every way, from arthritis pain to just simple muscle tone, and our ability to continue to do things is based on doing things, physically doing things. And, as we think about going out and doing something, we just have to do it with a little bit of moderation. I really am encouraging people to continue to try even new things, but realize, you can't go full throttle the first time you decide to try rock wall climbing because you're going to find out without a little bit of work on your leg strength, your calf strength, your arm strength, your core, that could present some real troubles for you, anywhere from, a finger or toe sprain to, back pain. So I don't want to preach the doctrine of avoidance. What I'm talking about is how do we do things and avoid the injuries that are going to set us back. So that's really the topic of discussion. When I go from Weekend Warrior, I say, well, what are the injuries that are going to set us back? So I have a pretty long list, and then we're going to talk about what to do to make them better once you have them. Because, if you're like me, you find something and you're getting better at it or improving, and then there's an injury, and because I pushed a little too hard or something I didn't anticipate, and how do I get back on track? So we're going to talk about that as well.
How do people know? Because sometimes the muscles are going to let you know that they're getting back into shape. So how do you know that it's not just the typical couple of weeks of getting the muscles back into action, or is it something that could be more serious?
That's a great question because you don't really know unless it's really severe and you think, oh, this is incapacitating. But the truth is we're going to have some soreness as we progress. That is part of knowing that you've done more than usual and your muscles are responding. And, a wise woman once told me that pain in your muscles is just proof that you're still alive. So, that happens to be my wife and boss. So she has lots of wisdom to share with me on a regular basis.
We have a caller looking to join us. And caller, you're on the air with Dr. Jonathan Tripp on KLIX. Go ahead.
Good morning. Well, I got a question for the doc. I'm 59 years old, and I suffer from barometric pressure arthritis. And what does he recommend, if anything, I can do about it? Because it doesn't seem to matter what I do, it still knocks me down.
That is a tough question because I don't know any country on earth that's going to not have barometric pressure changes. Mm-hmm. So, if you could find a climate that's more consistent, that's a possibility. But no, I don't have anything other than I would do with other people with arthritic pains. I love the idea of ice for inflammation. You can use things like ibuprofen, Aleve, and I caution that those are not high doses and all the time. But infrequent use is a beautiful thing. I'm also a big proponent of the use of turmeric or curcumin on a daily basis. That is something that, if you haven't tried, I would say give about 2 to 3 weeks of taking 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams daily, and that might change your baseline pain
I
and
sprinkled
limit
some
that.
of that on the turmeric on turkey the last few days when I was eating turkey. It doesn't take a lot, right?
Well, actually, I don't know if that's enough because curcumin is, or curcuminoid is the smaller piece of turmeric. Turmeric is the spice that we know from cooking. And so you actually need a fair amount of that. But, I don't know what's enough for any particular individual because I get reports from patients on a little bit goes a long way to no, I need to take high doses to it doesn't work at all. So it's worth a try. It is not threatening. It's actually healing to the stomach, whereas our anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen and Aleve can actually tear that up, and it is not a threat to the kidneys. So it's one I like really well as a baseline pain treatment. So
We've got more coming up
there's my suggestion.
with Dr. Jonathan Tripp from Tripp Family Medicine. It's Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine on KLIX. It's 840. Dr. Jonathan Tripp joining us in studio on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Bill Colley answering the telephones. And we should point out, too, the number is 208-736-0300. Although we're going to get back to just some advice for you if you're one of those weekend warriors or you're somebody thinking you're going to join the gym and immediately get back in shape. The doctor has already said you don't want to overdo it in the beginning, and there's a few lessons people should be taking into account if they're just deciding to start a new workout program.
Yeah, we're going to talk about injuries that set you back. Um, but as you're getting started or taking the next step and wherever you are in exercise, if you have a personality that's competitive, do less than you think you could, at least for the first few days, and then assess how are you feeling. I often teach people a pretty easy back exercise in our office to help with low back pain. And I tell them, what I want you to do is 20 reps twice a day on a regular basis. But to begin with, I want you to do 10 once a day for about 3 or 4 days and see how your back responds. And I do that because most people won't have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But some people, 10 is enough, and to go to 20 will actually set them back. And so this is the same attitude. For a few days, go less than you think you need to. And if that goes okay, go ahead and increase whatever your number of reps or your weights or your distance. All of that works well. For those that have a lot of joint pain or something that's really slowing them down already, consider swimming pool. Perfect time of year, to be in a pool. It can be walking at waist deep water or chest deep water. It can be water aerobics because there are classes available with that. It can be trying to swim laps, and I say trying because when I did this the first 2 weeks, I kept feeling like I was sinking as I would go from end to end of the pool, and it took about 2 weeks before I felt like I had kind of a rhythm and I stayed on top of the water. So, the pool is a beautiful place for any injury because it takes the weight off and allows the increased range of motion without guarding of your other muscles. So the muscles can let go, and you actually will improve quite quickly if you take to the pool. So let's talk about some of those injuries. Muscle strains or tears. So this can be in the shoulder, the thigh, the calf, upper and lower back, or even neck. Often a muscle strain is a short-lived problem. It just says, hey, you pushed too far, and it is really a micro tear in the muscle fibers. And so within a week or two, that usually heals up, takes care of itself. If it's a serious tear, that's going to take, like I will see patients with a calf tear, and they've been in good shape or they're just getting started, and they say, this has hung on for 3 weeks and it's not a lot better. That particular type of tear often takes 2 to 3 months before you're feeling like I can do something again. So these are the kinds of things we're trying to avoid up front by going more mildly in the first few days or few weeks. Sprains of the joints, those are probably the most common. Most people think of, hey, I was doing this and I sprained my ankle, or I tweaked my knee or my elbow. Those usually take 2 to 3 weeks before you're feeling pretty good enough to move forward. and the actual soreness will probably last more like 6 weeks.
I had a couple of, I was doing some work around the house Saturday, I guess it was, and Friday or Saturday. And I didn't notice it at the time, but after I was finished later in the day, I felt a bit of lower back pain, and also my right knee felt a little bit tender. But it was all gone within 2 days. 2 days later, I felt I was fine. I was walking again without any issues and the like. So something that I did that I was even unaware of, and at the end of the day, I felt it.
Yeah, no, and this is those are warning symptoms. Your back is and your knee is telling you, hey, we've done more than usual, and we got a little inflammation going on. Take it easy for the next few days with this. And you probably did because apparently you got better. Because if you were to push it and say, no, I got to stick to whatever my
Right.
routine is, and we're going to do lunges, and I'm going to do back extension type exercises, you probably would have pushed it to where you actually had an injury that kept you out of, working out for a while. So, yeah, those are warnings. And it doesn't mean because you're sore that you have to stop. It just says, okay, caution sign. Be careful how you go here. Don't try to push too hard. Um, some other things about, I was going to say about the sprains. A lot of people say, well, I shouldn't do anything until my soreness is entirely gone. And I should hold still. I should keep my foot up. If it's an ankle sprain, I absolutely, for the first few days, want you to do a lot of elevation. But I want that ankle moving, and I want you to be willing to kind of push forward on walking, even though it's sore. Because what we find is that if you continue to move it, get range of motion, you get the swelling out quicker. If you have it down all the time, the swelling remains longer. So we talk about RICE therapy, or a lot of people have heard this term, and what RICE stands for is rest, ice, compression, and elevation. And the truth is the relative rest is important, but actually keeping that ankle moving, we'd use a little exercise, telling people to draw the ABCs with their big toe, what they're using the whole ankle. And then people will often ask, well, do I use capital letters or do I use small case? And the answer is, we don't care, and you can do both. So it's the motion that gets that lymphatic flow going, keeps the swelling down along with the elevation. But the ice is key. So I want to talk about, for any of these injuries, ice for the first 2 to 3 days is the treatment of choice. People often say, well, you heat it right after, you sprain your ankle or sprain your wrist or whatever it is. And the answer is, while there's heat there, it feels better because there's more circulation. But in the acute phase, meaning the first couple of days, that area is swelling, and you just increase the swelling, and you're going to prolong the injury by doing heat for the first couple of days. So ice is first for 48 to 72 hours, and then you can combine heat followed by ice because you want more circulation, and you'll speed up that healing process. But you'll find in the first couple of days, if you do heat, you'll have a slower recovery.
I want to mention Dr. Jonathan Tripp in studio with us. We're 11 minutes from 9 o'clock, and we're at 56. You're listening, of course, to Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine. Bill Colley answering the telephones, that number 208-736-0300. And also wanted to ask the doctor if someone is looking to get in touch with you. A number of ways to do that, right?
You bet. Probably number one is the telephone. So appointments, especially if you need to talk to a nurse, we just have you call 208-933-4400. That's 208-933-4400. And then you can also reach us by way of our website, trippfamilymedicine.com. And you can follow us on Facebook at Tripp Family Medicine. And those are some very informational sites. Our website tells you a lot of information. We have links to the radio shows that we've done in the past. So lots of information, some fun to be had, and you can find out about our staff.
A number of years ago, when I'd gotten back on a bicycle for the first time in about 25 years, I ended up, after about 7 months, getting pretty proficient at long-distance rides.
Okay.
And I would go out, but the one thing, because I was not what you'd call, I didn't buy the spandex clothes and all of the fancy stuff.
You didn't have a race outfit?
I did not, but
Okay.
I would just wear a T-shirt and my shorts, and but I would ride, but I never thought about this. I never had a water bottle that I attached. And some days when I was out riding on a summer day, and you do about 50 miles,
Wow.
And then you come back and I did one day a 50-mile ride. And when I got back home, then all of a sudden I felt absolutely
Wiped out.
wiped out.
Yeah.
And maybe some water or something along the route might have helped, right?
Yeah. No, because you're using that, you're creating wind even if there's no wind by riding, and so you get evaporation through your skin. In fact, we lose a lot of our water through just breathing. A lot of it comes out with our breath, and we don't even know it. So these are types of water loss that we can't even uh, understand or we don't notice. If you're going to the bathroom, you notice that one, but this is undetected water loss. And so you're exercising, your body is trying to cool itself by sweating and therefore evaporation. And so, yeah, having water with you is a great idea, especially if there's any length. Like if you're doing 50 miles, you better have some water. Otherwise, you either, once you get off the bike, you want to fall down, or you fall down while you're on the bike. That's not 100% true because there's a lot of people that are tougher than I am and can ride a long ways. But 50 miles, I would have water with me.
But people, I think, sometimes make the mistake of thinking, okay, I'm finally in shape.
I don't need it.
Right. I don't need it, or at least as much as I used to have.
Yeah, no, it's kind of the opposite. If your muscles are in better tone, they're using more energy and more fluid. So yeah, the water, and you can do, we have our sport drinks that people love, and they add some sugar and some electrolytes or salts, and that helps maintain the water in your body because water stays where salt is.
And my T-shirt would have these big V's from the sweating on them, and the salt literally would be the bottom of the V
Yep.
or the outline of it. And so that was the key indicator of what I was losing during the course of that day.
Yeah, you see the crystallized salt. In fact, anybody that's been around horses knows how that looks after the horses have developed a sweat. They have a salt line that shows up on their fur. But so people often have questions about what do I do about the old injuries or the persistent pain that has been around for months. I didn't just hurt this last week, but it's been around for 3 or 6 months. How do I deal with that? And a lot of that really comes down to start treating it like a new injury. Go right back to that ice idea, but very persistently. You want to be icing wherever, like, let's say you have a heel strain or an elbow strain, a tennis elbow. If you get on that at least twice a day with about 10 or 15 minutes of ice where you get to where you feel like the bone is cold, you're going to do a lot of anti-inflammatory work and you'll notice the pain goes down. And if it doesn't after about 2 weeks, then you can come see me and we'll talk about steroid injections or other therapies we can do to really make that feel better. But if you spend about 2 weeks very diligently doing ice 2 or 3 times a day, you might find out that you get a long ways towards feeling normal again.
Is there such a thing as a water treadmill? When Donovan McNabb broke a right fibula many, many years ago, he was in a cast, apparently, that was an inflatable cast because they wanted him to stay in shape. The 6-week period to heal the bone, they wanted him back playing immediately after that. And I think I read somewhere that what they would do is they would remove the inflatable cast and that he would walk on a treadmill in water.
It depends on the fracture. If it's a very lower end of your fibula, which would be the outside ankle bone, as most of us know, that's one that can actually heal without being immobilized. And so I don't know the fracture, but the idea of doing something in water to keep your muscle strength going, your range of motion going, makes total sense. And somebody like McNabb has all kinds of financial resources and others that are motivated to keep him going that the average person doesn't have. So I believe it is. I'm not familiar with it, but it goes along with my theory that water exercise protects injuries and allows you to heal.
The last thing I want to talk a little bit about was things like not just dehydration, but heat exhaustion that you can deal with, especially in summer. And I'm sure people sometimes, even in wintertime, if they're in a hard workout outdoors, had dealt with this too.
Absolutely. They fail to take care of the water because they feel cool enough, and they get that dehydration, and therefore their bodies get too hot. I had this yesterday, and our temperature was mid 70s at most. Somebody spent several hours out in the sun doing yard work, and they are just like you getting off your bike. They are all worn out, feeling trouble. They may have a headache. They may feel sick to their stomach. And the real key on this is cool your body down with kind of a tepid temperature bath, let the evaporation help cool you down, and get lots and lots of fluid in. In fact, this was a phone call I had at about 7 o'clock last night, and I said, I don't care if he has to get up and pee all night. I want at least 2 liters of fluid in him tonight to try to get him as best recovered for tomorrow. So if you're going to be out in the sun, you'll find out you can drink a lot during the day. And so try to keep ahead, because by the time you're thirsty, you're already behind.
We've got a caller. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air with Dr. Jonathan Tripp.
Hi there. I didn't catch what vitamin or mineral you were talking about before the first break that's good for pain.
Oh, yeah, this is a over-the-counter supplement. It is a spice called turmeric, or its derivative is called curcumin, C-U-R, let me see if I spell that right, C-U-R-C-U-M, wait a minute, did I do that right? Curcumin. Yeah, C-U-R-C-U-M-I-N. And I generally recommend 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams a day. For those that have heard the first part, you're looking for something that talks about curcuminoid of 90+%. That tells you kind of the purity level on it. And there's lots of brands that are very good at this. Your health food stores, anywhere that they're selling vitamins, you're going to be able to find this. You can do it online. But the catch is you can't take it like an ibuprofen and expect it to work an hour later. You have to do this for a week or two to find out if it's going to help.
I want to thank him for the call. The last time I think I was buying a turmeric, I ran into the doctor in the checkout. And, of course, so sometimes you can even get good advice when you're shopping.
Yeah, just look around you. Use your resources, huh? So back to the weekend warrior idea. If you're injury prone, just go slow. Find things that don't beat you up. Don't start with rock climbing. I bring that up because I did that about 2-3 summers ago, and I was in terrible shape and just determined, my boys are doing it, and I'm going to do this because I don't get the chance. And I suffered for months, and I still feel like it was worth it. But you don't need to suffer for months. Start doing something. Consider the pool, walking versus running, bike riding versus something that's high impact. Lots of fun little sports, and people are getting into group activities or small sport activities. We have tennis. There's one called pickleball that's taking getting a lot of momentum with especially 50+ crowds. So lots of things. And look at our city parks system. There's lots available going on this spring and summer that can get you out of the house and get you moving. So go outside. It's good for your mind, body, and spirit, and improves your mental health as well as the physical improvement. So bodies that are in motion tend to stay in motion. So get moving.
I want to thank Dr. Jonathan Tripp for joining us this morning with Better Health from Tripp Family Medicine. We're coming up on 9 o'clock, and news from Fox and a local update with Benita Baeza.